So it's a make or break moment for Europe. After months of debate, the European Union will decide on whether to use Russia's immobilized assets to fund the Ukraine war effort. It's a critical test of the group's strength as it's huddling for crunch talks in Brussels. The European Union sees Russia's war as a threat to its own security as the war nears its 4th anniversary. The bloc wants to keep Ukraine financed and fighting. It has in fact proposed using frozen Russian assets to secure a huge loan to Kiev. The European Union has frozen about $247 billion of Russian central bank assets, which are mostly held at Euroclear in Brussels. Now, the complex plan involves the EU lending an initial amount of $108.5 billion to Ukraine, and this is about 2/3 of Kiev's funding needs for the years 2026 and 2027. The EU expects Ukraine's other allies to provide the rest of the budget.
Now we have a simple choice. Either money today or blood tomorrow. And I am not talking about Ukraine only, I am talking about Europe. And this is our decision to make, and only ours. I think all European leaders have to finally rise to this occasion.
My impression is that we can reach an agreement. I understand the concerns of some member states, especially the Belgian government, but I hope that together we can overcome them and that together we can embark on a path to send a signal of strength and resolve from the EU towards Russia.
Die Bedenken, die es bei einigen Mitgliedstaaten gibt.
Now, Moscow, on the other hand, has warned that using frozen assets to finance a loan would be considered theft of someone else's property. Putin and his advisors have issued some dark warnings about the consequences for European economic stability and investor faith in the Eurozone. So this, of course, is a big and a crucial moment where the EU, remember, which has put out its plans of funding the Ukraine war by using the frozen Russian assets. And this, of course, is going to be up for debate. And on the broadcast, we're joined by our correspondent William Denslow, who's joining us from Brussels. William, tell us about this crucial moment in Brussels where the issue of financing the Ukraine war using the Russian assets is now literally in a make or break moment. Why is it so controversial, and what is the opposition, Belgium, putting forth for this measure?
Absolutely. You mentioned that it's a make or break week. That's how European Union officials have described it. Now, the reason why this is so crucial is that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is here in Brussels, here at the European Council, speaking to the press a short while ago, said that essentially he needs a decision on this financial backing by the end of the year. Essentially, Ukraine runs out of cash in the second quarter of 2026. He says without this tranche of money, that means that they'll be in a weaker position at the negotiating table. That will also hurt their war effort, things like their ability to keep producing drones that, of course, are so vital on the front lines as well. So that is why the timing is so crucial. Well, when it comes to the details, well, the majority of those frozen Russian assets, to the tune of around $240 billion, most of them reside right here in Belgium in a series of clearinghouses. Now, Belgium is one of the countries that has the most opposition to using these frozen Russian assets as part of a reparations loan for Ukraine because they deem themselves as most vulnerable both legally and financially should this money, this tranche of cash, be forced to be given back to Moscow. The Kremlin, for its part, has described using these funds as illegal, and they have threatened legal action. So that is why Belgium is seeking guarantees from the rest of the EU's 26 member states that should this money be given back, that it won't just be Belgium on the hook to provide it. So that is a central part of these conversations here in the European Council. And when it comes to whether member states can find unanimity, well, that remains to be seen, with some officials describing it at the start of the talks as 50-50.
That's an interesting point that you made. How much unanimity can be found to use Russian frozen assets to finance the Ukraine war? But some are also suggesting that besides Belgium, even the United States of America is not very happy to carry forth with this measure. Will the EU speak in one voice and go against the Americans, who don't seem very interested in the idea of using frozen Russian assets to finance the Ukraine war?
That's right. We've heard from the likes of Hungary's leader, Viktor Orban, who's described it as a declaration of war. So very strong language there from the Hungarians, who are seen as perhaps the most pro-Russian in the European Union. That is why other suggestions of how to finance Ukraine, such as using a joint debt from the EU, has essentially been ruled out. The reason for that, according to officials, is because that such a plan would require consensus from all member states, would require buy-in from every 27 nations as part of that plan. And with the likes of Hungary, potentially Slovakia, the Czech Republic as well, hesitant to make such a move, that is why officials see it as a non-starter. But the frozen Russian assets, that is a different mechanism. It would not require buy-in from every single member state. It would, though, require the majority of members, and considering the fact that Belgium is most sensitive, that is a major reason why they want to ensure that Brussels and Belgium has buy-in, is supportive of this plan before they decide to go forward. And when it comes to the United States' position, well, plenty of conjecture as to whether they support this move and whether they feel it will be harmful for their peace talks that continue and are expected to continue on Friday and into the weekend, but in the United States, between Ukrainian and US officials. But ultimately, as far as many EU leaders are concerned, well, they say they need to speak with one voice on this issue, get it done, get financing for Ukraine over the line to counter some of those remarks we've heard recently from the US president, who's described Europe and Europe's leaders as weak.
Indeed. Thank you very much, William Denslow, for joining us from Brussels and getting us all those updates there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.